A controversial topic going through many youngsters these days are some resilience and coping strategies for stress. Do you have any suggestions towards this ongoing chain of questions?
Before we jump into coping strategies, we all should be aware of some stresses are. Most of the common stresses include schoolwork.
So basically everything in between schoolwork, like projects, assignments, and homework.
Yeah, some are overdue work, family problems, a passing on a loved one, divorce, family arguments, social media, friendships that are falling, and the list goes on. Stress may not be the only problem that people are trying to cope with, as there will also be a big stigma towards it. Mental health problems also contribute a major impact on people's lives. Sadly, not everyone at this stage of stress seeks out for support.
I believe that if you have a good level of self-respect, that would help you towards having an improved mental health state. This includes taking care of yourself, getting the amount of sleep you need, and trying to exercise on a regular basis. You also should try to be organized and find methods to reduce the amount of procrastination that you take towards upcoming assignments, work, and extracurricular activities. Now let's talk about resilience. What comes to mind when you hear of that term?
Resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, or to put it in one basic word, toughness. One type of resilience factor is protective factors. An example of one is positive self-perception. Self-perception refers to how children think about themselves, their skills, and their capabilities, and their sense of controls.
As we live in a very judgmental society nowadays, there are also many risk factors associated with it. Some include parents thinking that everything they say is a joke and not taking them seriously, negative self perceptions, being easily maneuvered and manipulated, using drugs, and just being around the people that you shouldn't be hanging out with. Now let's try to dive deeper into the subject. Another question that is commonly asked is how can protective or risk factors affect choices related to substance use, addiction, and risky behavior?
There are many ways that protective factors and risk factors affect choices related to substance use, addiction, risky behavior. For example, no support. Having no support can lead you to do these risky behaviors because you will feel closed off on all of your sides. Social determinants. Many of the social determinants can lead to these risky behaviors because, let's say your income is low and you can't afford to pay the bill. This leads you to do risky behaviors. Although something that can influence your choices is God, how may a relationship with God influence our choices and action?
I feel like God influences your choices as it is a part of everyone's religion. You would have to act accordingly based off the guidelines and rules as it is your vow to listen. An example would be Muslim people not being able to eat pork because of the prophecies of the Allah states that a man and woman cannot eat pork. In Hindu, it's very important to greet and respect people when talking to someone. Nowadays, priests and temples tell us that it is respectful to use common language and to use what and they pronouns whenever we are speaking to God, as one's gender is unknown, and it's our job to follow this as a Hindu. There are many resources that are there to help you. Some include our guidance counselor, for our last names A to F and Y, Mr. Murray, last names G to O and Z, Mr. Colangelo, and for last names P to X, Miss Vigilator. There are therapists, some include Shift Collab, as well as Family Metro Youth Services, and family members, such as parents, cousins, aunts, and even just the people you trust.
Here are 3 strategies you could use for someone else. SAMHSA, Substance Use and Mental Health Services. Chaplain, Miss Forrester. And Mental Health Week, which are activities you do every day to improve your mental health. Here are some ways that we can develop a more inclusive and equitable society that recognizes the value and human dignity of all people. Talk to people who are going through mental health problems. Try to make them happier and comfort them. Support and donate to websites that helps with developing a more inclusive and equitable society for others. Using common language will reduce the stigma, and it will tell other people the differences between mental health disorders and feelings. For example, ADHD isn't hyper and depression isn't being sad.
And that's all we have for today's Coping with Stress and Resilience podcast. Thank you for listening.